Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the last episode of History of Horror for this season, for Halloween, however you want to look at it. Today, we are talking about Leatherface and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. When I was doing research for this one, I noticed that there was not as many movies in this franchise as there is in other ones that we've talked about. Definitely not as many as Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, there still are quite a few movies, but definitely not as many as we had before. And the storytelling for this series is a lot different. So, starting in 1974, the first movie was released, and it was an indie production, believe it or not. It had a very small budget that was under $200,000 at the time. By now, that's like a couple million, but it had a very small budget. They used small time actors that were native to Texas, so they didn't have to pay them a lot. And they all worked very long, arduous hours to keep the costs low and production down because they were renting so much equipment at the time. The first one follows these young teens that come across a family of cannibals, and that's basically the basis of the storyline for every movie except the few prequels that exist. The gore in this movie is now legendary, but when it was originally released, the director wanted it to be a PG rating, and basically the censors told him that he was crazy and the movie would be getting an R rating and would be banned in several countries because of the level of gore. However, the movie did sell over 16 million tickets and made more than $30 million. One of the defining things about this movie and kind of the franchise as a whole is there is one weapon used as the main way of slaughter in this movie, and that, of course, is the chainsaw. The chainsaw comes up with every version of Leatherface, every version of the different killers, and every person kind of in the various families that are represented as this sort of clan of killers. At the time, a lot more horror characters were very opportunistic with their weapons of choice or just kind of used their hands. But TCM, as I'm going to call it for most of this video, kind of originated the trope of having a killer with one weapon and being this big hulking figure that was a lot larger than their victims and showing absolutely no mercy or remorse. Now, some of that changed throughout some of the movies, but really, Leatherface is an unstoppable killer. He has been quote unquote killed a few times, but much less than other movies. It's very different than Jason and Freddy, where they always kind of pop back up. Leatherface usually isn't killed, or we're kind of left to assume that he's dead, but he always kind of pops back up in those very last moments of the films, which makes him just seem completely unstoppable and an intelligent character who doesn't really say much because he's always able to outsmart the people that he's going after, or if nothing else, overpower them. And even though the film does take inspiration from Ed Gein, who is a well-known American serial killer who did eat and use his victims to kind of decorate his home, the movie is all fiction and not based on a real family, despite some reports saying that there was an actual family that inspired these movies. A fun fact about the first movie that kind of established what tropes were going to be used for the entire franchise is that the character Pam is put up on a meat hook in part of the movie. This is something that happens a lot in the films, is that Leatherface kind of hoists a victim up and impales them on the meat hook, and almost like a he'll come back for them later kind of thing. But Pam was the first one to be put up on there, and I learned from the Splatter and Splice podcast that the actress was actually hurt at the time, not impaled by a hook, but the wires that they used to hold her up were very sharp. So as they were kind of cranking her up, moving her around, she was hanging there. She was actually being cut. So the screams that you hear in the movie are her real screams as the wires dig into her back and shoulders. And she hung there for around 8 hours because shooting took so long. One of the main features of these movies is that they really focus on dysfunctional family relationships, and sometimes it's the teens that are running into this family of cannibals as the dysfunctional family, but also the family of cannibals themselves is sometimes dysfunctional. But they're very smart. I think the long game and kind of plots is something that we don't see very often in horror until the very, very end, where in TCM, the long game is kind of revealed in the middle, and we kind of are left to assume that this family's been doing this for a long time, maybe even generations, and they know how to get their victims in quite easily and kind of sustain themselves off of their victims. So the first movie was pure gore, pure storytelling, just an absolute masterpiece in terms of horror at the time. The second movie didn't come out until 1986 and was pitched as a dark comedy. We've seen this before in a lot of other movies where they take kind of a comedic route and it ends up kind of ruining the series. This one was just very odd to me. It takes place more at a carnival than at the house of the family, but all of these same kind of key points were there. This idea of family and the chainsaw and everyone working together to get to this end game. But also this twisted family, this one's a little bit harder to explain because some of the family is not really family. It's more just like this group of people. But there's also these big moments. Like each movie kind of opens with this big kill that right away tells us stuff is going down and it's going down quickly. So right from the jump with these movies, you're getting some jump scares, you're getting some kind of what just happened moments, which really help drive the story along very quickly. And most of these movies are not very long. When you look at runtime, they're only about an hour and a half. Now, the third movie came out in 1990 and was marketed with the tagline, the most controversial horror movie ever. The film actually received an X rating, but then made a bunch of changes so it was just able to obtain an R rating so that it could actually be in theaters and make as much money as possible. However, this is the worst performing movie in the series, making just under $6 million. The third movie did kind of fall into this horror formula that we see with a lot of the other movies I've talked about, where it goes off the rails so much that people lose the ability to suspend their disbelief. Of course, we all have this idea when we go into a horror movie that we can forgive certain things, but at this point, horror fans were a lot smarter. They were expecting a lot more from their movies than just some cheap scares. So when all these different characters started appearing, and there were a lot of them at the time, it just seemed like too much. And there was a little sister, and there were too many people who were trying to come in and save the day and getting killed without any real purpose. And at the time, the family was the Sawyers. That's the last name that was used. But the last name has been changed a few times throughout the series. The fourth film came out in 1995 and featured a very young Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger as they were just kind of starting their acting journey. And initially, this also started as an indie film, but Columbia ended up picking it up. And this one had the element of a prom and teens, and they run into this kind of malicious insurance agent. This one is really wild. There's a lot of retconning involved. There's also a robo-leg, and honestly, you just need to look up the plot for this movie on Wikipedia because there's a secret society involved, and I just cannot contextualize it all in this one video. But I promise you, this one definitely trumps the third movie in terms of ridiculousness and things just going off the rails. But in 2003, TCM was rebooted. The movie has some differences from the original, but the plot is still largely the same, except Leatherface is actually given a name of Thomas Hewitt, and the family dynamic is explained more in depth. And it lets us know that Leatherface actually has motives to his killings and isn't just a mindless killer. But much like the first movie, Leatherface survives everything and is kind of set up as this unkillable character. Now, in 2006, a movie came out that served as a prequel to all the other movies, and it starts in 1939 with the birth of Thomas and his adoption by the Hewitts because he is an abandoned child. And then it jumps 30 years into the future where we see why Thomas starts killing, so just giving a lot more depth to the character. After that, the plot is largely the same. We see the meat hooks, bear traps, and someone being tortured on a dinner table. But the end of the movie subverts the final girl trope with Leatherface actually killing her just as she reaches help, and he is able to walk away unscathed. In 2013, TCM was let out in 3D, which we've talked about how that was a huge thing in the 2010s for horror movies. The new movie shows the demise of the Sawyer family, except for a baby girl who is adopted, who ends up figuring out her origins, and it finds out that she is actually Leatherface's cousin. The end of the movie has one of the best twists I have ever seen, so I won't talk about it too much, but I highly recommend if you are someone who likes a lot more depth to your characters in horror films, this one may be for you. So there was a long break. There was a 4-year break between the next movies. In 2017, the movie Leatherface was released, and it served as a prequel to the original and 3D films, so it kind of tied those timelines together. This one starts in the 50s and kind of shows a new origin to Leatherface and explains some of the law enforcement aspects that really were not explained before, and also the idea that Leatherface was a patient in a mental facility first and then escaped to find out his true origins. So it changes a few things, but largely kind of sticks to this dysfunctional family idea. In 2022, we had the most recent TCM movie, and it was a remake set in modern times, but it follows the timeline from the 1995 movies. It was a straight-to-streaming release and was very poorly received, and it just follows a couple trying to buy an abandoned Texas town, and they run into Leatherface's family, of course, and all hell kind of breaks loose. So, a lot going on in these films. There is supposed to be a new movie coming out in, I believe, 2026. However, with the straight-to-streaming movie not doing very well, we may be in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre drought. However, if you are someone who really doesn't love horror movies but wants to get into them, I have watched this beginning Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's not that bad. So, if you guys enjoyed this look of me turning into Leatherface, let me know down below, and be sure to check out all my other history of horrors. I will leave the playlist linked up above, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.